Yeah, it's a real legit setup in here.
Oh, everything's top notch here, man.
First class.
These mics are like $2,500 each.
I have no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. There's a
minus $2,400. No, actually, minus like $2,450.
Oh wow. Okay. So, but it was like a Black Friday type of thing.
It was more like I stole them, but no, they're like $25 each. Honestly, I think the audio is good. Have you listened, Matt?
I have, absolutely.
What do you think of the audio?
I'm the sixth viewer from
sixth
that.
God.
Yeah.
You're sixth God.
From the podcast with Stu. I know you were saying you had 6 viewers or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's your mom. I think 2 of them were his mom or your parents.
My parents.
You guys.
Yeah, and I keep refreshing the YouTube page to get more views.
Oh, that's smart. You just keep it on like
just keep it on. Yeah, keep it on a constant refresh. But dude, thanks for doing this. I'm fired up to do this podcast.
Absolutely.
Before we get into any questions, I gotta say, like, I'm gonna get this out of the way. I don't know anything about baseball, and when I say anything, I mean like nothing. So, but I'm trying my best to learn about it because honestly, like, such a sick sport, and I thought that would be a great idea to have you on. Like, who am I going to learn from but the GOAT himself? But before we get into any questions, tell us a bit about your baseball career, where you played and all that.
Sure, man. Yeah. So growing up in Bradford, Ontario, halfway to Barrie. Shout out to Bradford.
Justin Bieber's hometown?
No, that's Brantford. That's a
common mistake, isn't it? You always get that, don't you?
Yeah. But that's all right. So I played in Oakville for the Oakville Royals for a little bit, just like elite baseball, my senior year and junior year of baseball, high school baseball. And then I went off to the States in North Dakota, small town, Jamestown, North Dakota. Played there for 4 years. Had an absolute blast. Got some pretty crazy stories and made some pretty good friends.
I've heard those stories.
Yeah, yeah.
I wish the listeners could hear some of those stories, man. They're insane.
We'll have to do like an explicit cut episode or something like that.
We can have this one be the explicit cut. I don't care.
I'm into it. Into it. So yeah, I did that for 4 years, and then I've also played in the Intercounty League here in Ontario. I think this is my 3rd or 4th year. Like 1 year I was playing junior and IBL and just kind of like sat on the bench, caught a bunch of bullpens type of thing.
Nice. Yeah. And you were just telling me before we started recording about the league you play in right now. So it's like a semi-pro kind of thing?
Yeah, it's semi-pro or amateur. I don't know how they classify it, but it's this is the 100th year of the league. Actually, it's been around for 100 years. So I guess 1918 was the first year, and there was like an original 6 teams or 5 teams or something like that.
Do you play in the NHL? Is that what you said?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But actually, the Toronto Maple Leafs, like the baseball team, were called the Maple Leafs before, like the hockey team were called that.
Oh, so, actually?
Yeah, that's one of the teams in the league. They play out of Christie Pitts.
Well, I guess the Leafs were called like the St. Pats before, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how they just like walked in and stole the name or something like that.
I mean, they can do whatever they want. It's Toronto and it's hockey.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's pretty cool. So tell us about like the work you're doing right now in sports science. You're with Nick, right? Who was on the first episode of the podcast. Yeah. Yep.
Nick's my supervisor. And I'm kind of incorporating like the sports side of my background with the science side that I've always kind of taken. I took biology for my undergrad, but I've always been really interested in metrics and sports science. So what I'm doing is looking at baseball players and specifically like the warm-up drills that they're doing, and how it's affecting their in-game performance.
Warm-up, only a warm-up like before the game, or practice in general?
So in baseball, like there's quite a bit of warm-up drills that you use in practice anyways. So before games, depending on the type of resources that you have, maybe you're hitting off of a tee or a coach is throwing batting practice to you. So it really just depends on the resources, but these drills that we're specifically looking at are used in warm-up and in practice.
There's like tee work, right? And then the pitching machine and then the batting practice with the coach.
Exactly.
What you're studying is like how relevant these are to in-game performance and like in competition, right?
Exactly. How representative they are of facing an actual pitcher.
Is it from from a gaze behavior type of thing? Like, actually, let's explain what gaze behavior is.
Sure, yeah. So obviously a huge part of baseball is the vision and using your eyes to, figure out when the ball is going to be delivered, where it's going to be thrown. Specifically, what we're going to look at is we have these like really cool eye trackers or eye tracker, and we can look at the quiet eye or how long you're looking at something, how the specific cues that you might be looking at. So that's pretty much what gaze behavior is just how long you're looking at something, where your eyes shift to while you're doing that, and how long it takes you to cue in on a target that you're trying to look at. So we'll be looking at with baseball players.
So, but pros or elite players have a better ability to track objects, right, than novices or less elite players, which I guess makes sense. It's not like
Right.
But what's most interesting is how they actually track it, the elites. So, like on a pitcher, if you're a batter and you're looking at the pitcher, what cues are you actually looking at? Like, what are you trying to pick up?
Oh, there's tons. So just kind of like a side note, there's been a lot of research done on baseball players, and they found that like the majority of them have 10-20 vision. So what you see at 20 feet, they can see it, or what you see at 10 feet, they see at 20 feet. So they've got better than 20-20 vision, the vast majority of them. But what they're looking at is so many things. Like a big part of baseball is being able to pick up tells. So how long the pitcher holds the ball in his glove, or maybe he starts to drop his back shoulder when he's throwing a certain pitch. You kind of pick up on subtle tendencies, but the majority of the time you're just trying to get your eyes to the release point of the pitcher. They all have different release points or funky deliveries, and you're trying to figure out where that release point is going to be. Yeah. So as soon as they release it, you kind of get a head start on tracking the ball.
So is that why? So I was looking up some baseball clips and stuff like that, just preparing for the episode, and I came across Luis Severino. Yeah. So is that what makes him so good? Is because he hides the ball and he hides all the cues when he's throwing?
Exactly. Yeah. He's got a pretty funny delivery. It helps that he throws like, I think he's mid 90s or upper 90s. So like he's got a pretty overpowering fastball with like a really good slider. So he uses those two together. It's called tunneling, like releasing the fastball down the middle, and then releasing the slider in the exact same spot. And then the hitter has to guess basically, okay, is this ball going to end up on like the inner half of the plate, or is it going to be a ball like outside of the zone? Yeah. But depending on the fastball or slider. But yeah, he hides the ball behind his body for a really long time. And then at the last possible second when he's planting his foot, then his arm comes around, and then that's how he delivers it. Certain guys, they may be able to throw like 105 or 106, but their release point is easy to pick up. So that's why these major league hitters can still hit them. But then you also see pitchers in the majors that throw, upper 80s or low 90s, and they have really funny deliveries, and it's really hard to figure out where they're going to let it go from, and maybe they change their arm angle like pretty often.
So when you say funny deliveries, like how? Like they're just trying to deceive the batter, or they're trying to like hide their cues and...
Yeah, so
hide the ball.
Exactly. It's kind of something that coaches for a long time might have prescribed, like a certain type of mechanics, saying like you should throw it right over the top every single time. And then I think they're starting to realize in recent years, like it helps to have maybe instead of being right over the top every single time you throw the ball, maybe the next time instead of being right here, like over the top, you drop it down to like 3/4, or you go submarine. That's why you see some guys throw like submarine pitches too, because it's just something that these hitters have never seen. And Marcus Stroman on the Blue Jays, he likes to vary how long he holds the ball for. And like maybe he'll pause at the top of his thing. Maybe he'll start his delivery and then hold back on his back foot. And then sometimes he'll look like he's going to go really slow and then deliver it really quick. It's called a quick pitch. And you're just trying to mess with the timing. So that's like another way you can kind of release the ball in different ways and totally throw off a hitter's timing.
So all you're trying to do is like F with the batter.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just a mind game the entire time. Like it's just it really is a chess match between the pitcher and the hitter.
That's what I noticed about baseball is like as someone who's like just started to get into baseball, there's more science behind it. I feel like than any, they call boxing the sweet science, but I feel like this is from a scientific perspective, like. This has so many cool things to look at. So many cool features.
Baseball is like full of nerds.
Exactly. It's the sport of nerds.
Yeah, it really is. The data analytics is unbelievable, and sometimes there's just too many metrics, like too many things to look at, and I think it can be exhausting sometimes to look at it all. But yeah, people love numbers in baseball for sure.
So if you're a batter, if you were trying to tell a batter what cues to pick up on while looking at the pitcher, where would you tell them to look?
So one of the traditional ways is when you're on deck, like when you're about to go up to the plate, you really have to utilize that time to get your timing down. So maybe you're trying to sync up when to move your front foot with how they're releasing it, but you really should be looking at okay, does this guy release it from over the top? Does he release it from 3/4? Is he a submarine type of pitcher, like from underneath the like halfway plane of their arm? But you have to really utilize like those warm-up pitches, or maybe you have film on the pitcher, and that's what you're looking for. You're trying to figure out exactly where how long he normally holds the ball and exactly where he's going to let it go from. That's going to give you like a huge advantage.
So in your work that you're doing right now, are you comparing the efficacy of tee work, pitching machine, and coaching or batting practice?
Yeah,
like regular batting practice?
More or less. I mean, I think that's one thing that I was going into my master's thinking like, oh, we're going to disprove one of these drills, or this way is better than the other way. But really, yeah, we just want to see the efficacy of it. We want to see how they stack up, how they prepare you for a game. Some of them may be more representative, some of them may be less representative, but they might have different roles in your warm-up routine. And we just want to see really how it is affecting your gaze behavior in an acute manner.
So they pretty much all have pros and cons, but none of them are really that relevant to in-game competition, or what would you say? Yeah,
so definitely differing degrees. So like if you're hitting off of a tee, your head's stationary, you're looking at the ball the entire time. A ball's not coming towards you at all, and you can start whenever you want to try and hit it. So, I mean, there's nothing really there that's game-like. It's been treated as something like just as a warm-up to get your muscles and tendons and ligaments loose. And then if you're facing a pitching machine, you kind of lose all the cues of a traditional pitcher, like someone's arm actually following through, their shoulders turning. And then there's also the velocity thing. So a pitching machine can be used to match velocities that you're going to see in a game, but the hitter doesn't really necessarily know exactly when it's going to be released, so it could throw off their timing. And then there's coach throw and batting practice, which I would argue is probably most game-like in the sense that, you know, there's actually another human throwing the ball towards you and you can see their movements, but it's traditionally thrown from like 30 or 45 feet away, where a mound is 60 feet, 6 inches, and with a lot less velocity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's more game-like in the sense that you get the cues, but not in the ball coming towards you at a game-like speed.
So what do you think? Do you think in the future there's something to be done where you can get the best of both worlds of a pitching machine in terms of velocity and a coach or live body throwing a ball at you? A lot of teams have actually started to do that. They'll have a projector and they'll have like a computer simulation, and it'll project a pitcher on the screen, and there's a hole in the screen, and then the pitcher goes to deliver the pitch, and then as their hand comes to where that hole is, the ball is let go from a pitching machine behind the screen, and it comes at like 95 miles an hour, and it's pretty game-like. Wow. Yeah. Is that like, do all MLB teams have that?
I would assume the majority of them are at least looking into the technology, but I know some of the teams that are really science-driven and analytic-driven, like the Houston Astros are a huge team for that. I'm sure they have those types of facilities available to them.
Yeah, that's super cool. I never thought about like simulations and especially with the hole and the thing, like that's gonna give you the best of both worlds. That's right. Amazing.
So right now the technology is kind of like there's a generic pitcher throwing a ball in those simulations, but you could think the way that technology is advancing, you could probably say you're facing a pitcher the next day and you know who that pitcher is going to be, you could like import their kinematics or something into some program, and then that pitcher would be throwing you the simulations before the game and get you like super prepared for who you're facing.
Right. So instead of just doing film, you're doing actual like almost real life practice.
Yeah, like
using film.
Very representative, very game-like, which is the optimal learning condition.
Yeah. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
So have you found anything yet, or you're still in the process of kind of developing the study design and all that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we're actually just submitting for ethics, like ASAP. Nick, if you're watching, sorry, man, I'm working on it after, I swear.
Nick, we're busy.
Yeah. What do you want? Wait, I got invited to a big time podcast.
Yeah.
I don't have time to work on some peasant ethics. You know?
You work on that, Nick. While we're doing
that. Email me once that's done. How about that? So I'm just submitting ethics, and then the data collection process, like the actual study that we're doing, will probably get done near the end of summer.
So you have can we discuss that, like the sample size and?
Yeah, we can discuss the sample size. Can't really discuss like my hypothesis because I don't want to like bias anything. But yeah, we're going to be taking elite baseball players, so guys that will play in, the inter-county league that I play in, or have college experience or even pro experience. And then we'll balance them depending on their age and their experience into different groups, and we'll have them face like a simulation.
And see how relevant that would be to their in-game competition. Like you're going to track their stats later on, and
But that would be really nice. The problem is
that takes a long time.
Yeah, it takes a long time, and that's probably more of like a PhD type of project. So I think for now we're going to do, because the main thing we're looking at is the gaze behavior. We want to see how it affects that. But it definitely opens the door for studies like that later on.
So when I was reading some of the studies on gaze behavior, one of the most interesting concepts is the quiet eye. I don't know much about it, to be honest. All I know is like the term quiet eye. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So pretty much what it is the time right before you perform a movement, there's this concept called the quiet eye, in that you focus in on the target. I think it's something like 100 milliseconds or 150 milliseconds. The definitions have been kind of fluid. But it's the last time you focus on that before you start a movement is your quiet eye. And supposedly if you, like expert players that start their quiet eye earlier and for longer durations, that's what makes them experts. Like they're better able to hit a golf putt if they're staring at the golf ball for a longer amount of time than if they were to not stare at it. Or if you're throwing a dart, if you're looking right at the target, right before you initiate the toss of the dart, you stare for, let's say it's like 300 milliseconds, but you initiate that like 150 milliseconds before you throw, then that's like your quiet eye, basically.
That's what I do before I hack a dart.
Yeah. Okay. So like lining up the smoke and
the smoke
lighter
with the lighter.
Okay. Yeah. In wind conditions, how do you deal with that? Like you turn it upside down, or
you usually get a friend to kind of like provide some support or anything. Yeah.
You outsource for that.
I outsource for that. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. So in basic terms, like a baseball or a basketball player throwing a free throw, so they're staring at the target, and we're talking milliseconds, right? We're not talking like staring at it for seconds. It's all in milliseconds, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it'd be pretty funny if like Curry's up there, like just, I don't know, like
taking a pause.
Yeah. Or like, those like frat boys at like a Pong tournament or something like that, where they're like focusing in on one cop, like they're trying to channel their quiet eye. But yeah, no, it's milliseconds. So it could be staring at the back of the rim or the front of the rim. But they all have like a pre-shot routine. So they'll do like 2 dribbles, spin the ball, and then right before they go to start the movement, they'll focus on whatever their target may be, the back of the rim, front of the rim, side of the rim, and then they shoot the ball. That's the quiet eye.
And so the interesting thing about it is how to prolong the quiet eye. So the more you prolong it, the better your performance is, right? So is that just a matter of like keeping your eye on the target?
Yeah, so it's and that's the thing about quiet eye. You have to be fixated on the target. So you might think that you're doing quiet eye, but until you have like eye tracker on your actual eyes, seeing what you're looking at, you may be shifting from the back of the rim to the front of the rim, not actually performing quiet eye. You're not focusing in on one target. Oh, yeah.
Because you might think that the target is like this, is small, like it's just the rim, but there's different angles and different parts that you might be focusing on.
Right. And I'm sure like anyone thinking back like on it, it's like, oh yeah, that's what I do. I focus in on that one target. But until you see your eyes doing it, you might be moving your eyes around, not actually looking at one specific place.
Because there's an infinite number of points that you can be focusing on.
Exactly.
But so, okay, that's easy to do in basketball. Well, not easy, but I mean, it's easier than baseball, because in baseball, I mean, how many milliseconds do you have until the ball reaches you from the mound?
It's like on a 96 mile an hour fastball, there's 400 milliseconds. So
you can't look at shit.
Yeah, no, you can't look at anything, because it takes you have to decide at 200, I think it's 250 milliseconds. You have to decide if you're going to swing or not swing, like after they've released the ball, because it takes to send the signal to your arms to swing. It takes 150 milliseconds.
Wait, how much time do you have for you to decide?
So for the pitch to get to the plate, it's 400 milliseconds.
Yeah.
For you to decide, you have to do it by the 250 millisecond point.
Okay.
Because I think after like 75 or 100 milliseconds, that's when you just realize like, oh shit, there's a ball coming towards me.
Yeah.
You can't do anything. And then from that like 75 or 100 milliseconds to the 250 millisecond point, then you have to figure out what type of pitch this is, where's it going to end up, how fast is it going, And then at 250 milliseconds is like, okay, start the swing or don't start the swing, because once you cross that, you won't be able to catch up to it.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's nuts. It really is. I personally think the hardest thing to do in sports, but there's been a lot of research suggesting that it is like one of the hardest tasks to do in sports.
I mean, the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I think it takes 400 milliseconds just to blink.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, if you timed your blink so that you close your eyes right when the pitcher releases it, you won't see it hit the glove. Like you open your eyes.
You'll literally miss it if you blink.
Yeah, exactly.
That's insane. Going back to boxing and MMA, I think that's if not the most scientific sport, that it's got to be baseball in terms of even reaction times too. Because if you think of it like a right hook coming at you, you don't have that much time to react to it either. And
that's the thing about boxing and MMA. Like those guys are so tired when like the second round, and you're making split second decisions. Yeah. Like should I, punch or kick or right hook or left hook or whatever it might be. I don't know how they do that, because I mean baseball, it is pretty nice. Like you're not necessarily sprinting all the time or doing like all this like
you're chewing tobacco.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're chewing tobacco, spitting seeds, doing whatever. But like when you're physically and mentally exhausted like a boxing match, I can't imagine trying to make those judgment calls or reacting like
that. Not only are you tired by the second round, you're also dehydrated as hell from cutting weight.
Yes.
So you're draining your brain of water.
Exactly.
You're draining your whole body of water. Like your action time is shot. Your stamina is not as good. Everything you can do while you're hydrated is essentially depleted when you're competing in the ring. So it's insane. Have you heard of what happened recently? Do you follow the MMA or UFC?
Oh yeah, I follow it. I'm not like a crazy intense fan, but I love all sports. So
they implemented early weigh-ins, which is at 10 a.m. You do it 10 a.m. than the day before the competition. Okay. And fighters seem to love it, right? Because it gives you more time to hydrate by the time you get into the octagon. And so now they want to get rid of that. Now they want to bring it back to 8 p.m. the night before.
Oh, wow.
So that means you have 24 hours, maybe less, depending on where you're actually fighting, to rehydrate. Because fighters have started to miss weight more after the early weigh-ins have been implemented.
I see. So, but that's what I don't really understand. Like, what is the point of the 8 p.m. weigh-in? Like, are they worried? Like, why would they move it back? Are they worried that guys are gonna put on like 5 pounds or 10 pounds and giving them a huge advantage, or are they just really trying to?
So I don't think they know why more fighters have started missing weight now that they've implemented early weigh-ins. So it's only been 2 years since they've implemented it. Before that, at 8 p.m., I think like during 2 years or something like that, 30 fighters missed weight. And those 2 years after the 8 a.m. Weigh-ins, 62 have missed weight.
Oh, wow.
And so because of those numbers, they want to bring it back to 8 p.m.
Oh, I see. Okay. But you're right. That's a huge advantage for the fighters. Like the 8 a.m. weigh-ins, just for their health, it makes way more sense to do it.
Way more sense.
Yeah, like with a lot of time. And then those guys that are missing weight, I really don't think
unprofessional.
Yeah, I don't think that's a 12-hour difference. That you just weren't prepared. Like it's
and like I'm in no position to kind of call professional fighters unprofessional, but honestly, listen, if you sign a contract 2 months in advance and you miss weight, an extra 12 hours, like that shouldn't even be in consideration to help you. You signed a contract 2 months ago. That's when you start your weight cut. Not necessarily in terms of cutting water, but in terms of shedding body weight. You shed it over time, and then you do your major weight cut a couple of days before. Right. So,
yeah. No, that's exactly. It's part of the contract. You are a pro fighter. You get paid tons of money. A lot of people come to watch you do this. Yeah. You're an entertainer. And that's your job. Make your weight and fight the way that you want to fight. Yeah. Like it's just there's two parts about it, and I think just kind of pushing back the weigh-in time will not make a difference as far as who's going to make weight and who's not going to make weight, because they're professionals. Like they have professional trainers, professional staff helping them out.
Nutritionists.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, not all of them, because some people in the UFC are actually making terrible money who can't afford nutritionists and all that. But I don't know if these are the fighters that are necessarily missing weight. Right.
Yeah, and that might be similar to like college football players who are making no money and they don't have like certain resources available to them depending on like what schools they're going to. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like the school's paying you money, or the league is paying you money, or in this case, like a contract is paying you money to fight.
Yeah.
And this could be your opportunity. So, I mean, the timing of the weight cut, just that should be insignificant.
Speaking of NCAA and all that, what's your stance on whether NCAA's athletes should be paid or not?
I absolutely think they should be. Listen, like college football in the States is a whole different animal. Like in Canada, it's not so easy to think of, but like Texas high school football games, they sell it like 25,000 people go to that. Like
that's more than a Leafs game.
Yeah, there's like hardcore alumni for all of those. They love football in the States. It's just how they are. So if you go to Michigan, who's got the big house at 110,000 people, I think they can seat in Michigan, or Alabama, the huge schools, they have tons of fans showing up, over 100,000, and then plus the millions of people that are watching on TV. And then these athletes are getting paid. So maybe tuition at Michigan is, let's say, $25,000 a year. And some of these guys get full rides, which is definitely not the case for the entire team.
True.
So you're telling me that $100,000 over 4 years is suffice to satisfy these millions and millions and millions of viewers. And then these kids, they have nutritionists available to them. They have excellent trainers. They might have ISTs, like integrated sports teams, helping them out. But at the end of the day, they still go home and they have to eat ramen noodles or craft dinner or peanut butter
they don't
sandwiches.
get food provided to them, do they?
Some of them, it depends if you live on campus, if you live off campus. Some of them have food plans where they monitor everything that you eat. But not every school is Alabama. Not every school is USC. And these schools have to compete against those teams. So the other D1 programs. So these guys should be paid way more money. They should get a cut of the revenue. I don't know how you go about implementing that. But maybe it's like a performance-based thing. Maybe it's just you sign a contract to play there, and then you can't leave for the draft, but you are able to make this much money. Because that's the whole reason people leave like those big D1 programs to go to the draft is, okay, like I need to make some money now. Like I need to make a living.
Money. Yeah. And
so
your body's not going to hold up forever.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in football.
Exactly. Especially in football. Like you're getting your head bashed every single day.
Yeah. And
you're not making a single penny.
You think of running back, like those guys, I don't know how many times they're tackled a game, but if they run the ball 30 times, the majority of the time they get tackled by one or two guys, and then they're blocking. Like it's just so hard on the body. That's
insane. Not to mention the TV rights they sell too. How much money they're making off TV rights, merchandise,
yeah.
Not even the ticket sales.
Yeah. No, it's you have such a huge group of fans because maybe you have like 50,000 people going to the school at once, like in UCLA or Michigan, like, just so many students. Those people all become lifetime fans, and then they move countries and stuff like that, but they're still buying the merchandise, still watching the games, all of that stuff.
That's crazy. Did you? So what division did you play in baseball?
So the league that Jamestown is, it's NAIA, and basically, so there's NCAA, D1, D2, D3, and then there's NAIA as well. NAIA is known for like pretty good academic schools, but also a lot of smaller schools like in the Midwest, or in not like really populous places. And they're trying to build up the community of certain sports in the NAIA. Like NAIA football compared to NCAA football, it definitely doesn't stack up. But like sports like baseball or even hockey or the women's sports in the NAIA are like really good. Really good. So basically what they're trying to do is build up the athletic system for the NAIA, but what they're leaning on is we want people that are pretty academic because they give a lot of academic money in NAIA, and they focus a little bit more on the school side of things.
Okay, so you get a solid education, and you also get to play at a high level.
Exactly, and I mean we played against D1s at Jamestown all the time. You play against really good schools, and like you see really good athletes. And also what happens in the NAIA is someone goes to a big D1 school, and for some reason they can't keep their marks up, or they screw off, or they get kicked off the team. They'll usually go to a really good NAIA school and play for them as well, to either build their stock back up or to start every day.
So it's more almost like a farm.
League.
Yeah,
it is. It's kind of like a farm league. But the big powerhouse like NAIA schools are doing a really good job of keeping up with these D1 programs, and especially in baseball, like I see like eye-popping numbers in the NAIA. Like there's a certain hitter, Kiki something. He was like the NAIA Player of the Year in baseball, and he actually didn't get drafted. And it's a big bone of contention in the community, because then there's guys like there's 40 rounds in the MLB draft, and there's 30 teams, so there's so many picks. And in like the 38th round, 39th round, like maybe they're drafting like quarterbacks that they know aren't going to sign, or they're drafting like 35-year-old guys that they know they aren't going to sign, instead of taking chances on like a 22-year-old kid that just tore it up in the in this league.
That's a shame. Yeah. So okay, going back to baseball and tracking eye movements, we just went on like a 20-minute tangent. So what's the problem with using an eye tracker to study baseball? Like, what limitations does that have?
Yes.
Actually, sorry to interrupt. No. Let's explain what an eye tracker is, because you know a lot about it. You work with them. Yeah. Can you explain a bit what an eye tracker is and what it does? For sure.
So I can start by describing the one that we have in our lab. Basically, it looks like something you'd wear to the movies, like those 3D goggles. And it's got two cameras on the inside of the tracker that are looking right at your retina, and they lock on and they're following your eye movements. And then it's got an external camera that looks out at what you're looking at. And then it's got a cord that kind of comes off the arms and connects to like a phone or an iPad. And then on that phone, I can see exactly what you're looking at. So depending where you're looking on the screen, so say we're both looking at this wall over here, I see that wall, and then there's a little green dot that tracks your eyes everywhere that it's going. And so I can see that. And then once we're done with the study, like I'll press record, I take that and I plug it into a software program and import everything you were just looking at, as far as like fine eye movements, like saccadic eye movements, a variety of things. And saccadic eye movements are just basically ballistic movements of the eye. So you're looking at something, then you jump your eyes in a certain direction.
Like quick shifts. And
like quick shifts, like as opposed to like a lazy trail of your eyes going. It's like kind of choppy, like it jumps to the next place. Is when you're trying to predict where something's going to be.
So when the baseball batters, you're using batters, right? And
we'll be using batters.
So what's the limitation of using an eye tracker? Does it kind of alarm the athletes, like, wait, I'm in a study, like I got this eye tracker? They're kind of distracted by the fact that they have an eye tracker on, or no, you don't think that's a...
It shouldn't be, but I mean, that's definitely something you have to consider. If someone doesn't wear glasses, or if someone never has that on very often, it would definitely throw them off.
Yeah.
And it kind of is like a constant reminder that you're in a study, something's going on, and it's not something that you may be used to. But it's something they've done a really good job of developing the technology before. Whereas before, it used to be like these huge helmets that you'd have to wear, and you could only use it for stationary studies, looking at like a computer screen. And it was like 40 pounds or something sitting on your head, like a football helmet.
Jesus.
Now it's like they're literally like prescription glasses or movie glasses.
They weigh nothing. Yeah, I picked them up before at the lab.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's becoming less and less. And I think it's just something like once you get into the swing of the study, you kind of forget that you do have them on.
So we've agreed that perception, so like perceiving the ball coming at you and then timing that with your action are important. So are practices and warm-ups not helping in that? Do you think the traditional way it's been done is not helping with perception and action?
Yeah. So perception action coupling is a huge part of my study. And really what that means is it's a pairing of information and movement. So if you're going to hit a tennis ball, it's you pairing the visual of a tennis ball traveling towards you with the movement of swinging and hitting it. So in baseball, the batters pair the movement of their front foot with the release of, with the movement of the pitcher's arm and the release of the ball. So they're trying to pair that up. That's a perception action coupling. And traditionally, batting practice is thrown off that pairing. So if you practice before a game, let's say in the coach is throwing 60 miles an hour, and you time the movement of your foot with that velocity, or like with the pitcher releasing the ball, then when you go in the game, your foot is going to be getting down way late, and you're going to be late on every pitch. You're not going to be able to catch up.
Because there's a 30-mile-an-hour difference.
Exactly. So that's been a big problem in the major leagues recently, is because these guys are saying, well, why are we taking batting practice anymore? Is it for the fans? Like, are we just hitting home runs in the stands before the game so they can get the ball? Like, is it really getting us prepared for the game?
Right.
So what a lot of them have been doing is taking the batting practice just because MLB mandates it, and then going to the tunnels underneath and using a pitching machine or using a tee or something to get the timing back up to a high velocity pitch.
Oh, so MLB mandates it.
Yeah. You have to take batting practice. Like if it rains or if you've played like a number of day games in a row, then you're allowed to deny batting practice, but they'll fine you if you don't show up for batting practice.
Okay, so that gives you kind of an answer of why batting practice is around.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an experience for fans. Like the hit balls there. Yeah. It's amazing. You see like Aaron Judge or these monsters hit huge home runs, but I don't know. Does it really prepare you for?
Is it really that relevant? Yeah, that's questionable, right?
Exactly.
So you sent me a lot of links about. We're kind of going to shift topics here. You sent me a lot of links about spin rate and velocity.
Yeah.
So if you're a batter, how does the spin rate affect your perception of the ball?
So
does it at all?
Yeah, it definitely does. It might not be something that you notice consciously, like, oh, this guy has a really high spin rate. That means this is going to happen.
Yeah.
But if someone's throwing a 4-seam fastball, so a fastball that kind of spins end over end like this, the more spin rate that you have, the less it's going to drop as it's coming towards you. Mm-hmm. So there's hitters that say, like, I swear that pitch rose. Like when I was looking at it, it rose up on me. Like I swung under it. It's not the case.
Bryce Harper says that.
Yeah, he's like, I don't care what dumb researchers say. Like they have never stepped in the box and faced 98. Yeah. Like he's a big time bro.
I'm always, or almost always on the side of the athletes.
Yeah.
But okay, listen, dude. Like you know way more about baseball than them, but they know way more about physics than you.
Exactly.
So how about you just listen?
Yeah. So because you've hit 10,000 baseballs in your life or 100,000 baseballs in your life, doesn't mean that your observations defy
also
physics.
Have you heard of optical illusion before?
Come on, man. But basically a high spin rate
also come on the podcast.
Yeah. At Bryce Harper, we'll tag you out. The high spin rates sustains where it's going. So if you've got a low spin rate, the ball drops off and out of the zone. Mm-hmm. But if you've got a high spin rate, it's going to stay on an even plane. It's not going to drop as much. Mm-hmm. So that's why pitchers with high spin rates will throw up in the zone, and a lot of guys will pop the ball straight up because they're swinging under it because they think it's going to drop a little bit more, but they'll pop it up in the infield.
So because the ball is spinning, it creates downforce, and downforce creates an equal but opposite force going up, right?
So if there's a ball moving through the air,
yeah,
there's kind of a wind that comes down and pushes it, like forces it to go down, but the backspin kind of counteracts that and causes the ball to rise or like to sustain, to not drop, like to cut through the air.
But why does it not rise though? And keep in mind, I got a 52 in grade 12 physics, so I can't really like say much about it. But why does it not rise?
It's the same idea as like a bullet spinning through the air. Like a bullet, if you knuckle a bullet, it's going to drop straight down.
Yeah.
But the way it spins, it cuts through the air and then creates this. Think of like a car commercial. The way the air goes over the top of a car, you know, when they see the streamline over top of it. When it gets to the back of the car, that air is pushing down and forces whatever's cutting through it to go down. If you can create spin, it only counterbalances that air. It can't
overcome
it. So a plane has wings to overcome it, and like huge horsepower engines to be able to take off. But the actual wings is what cause it to lift. So like a baseball, I mean, it'd have to be like a golden snitch or something like that, like from Harry Potter with wings that would make it fly.
Okay, that makes sense. So how does spin rate affect velocity? Does it?
It doesn't. And they're trying to figure out how to change spin rate on certain pitchers, and they haven't really been able to put their finger on how to do that. It just changes where the ball is going to end up. It doesn't change how hard it's necessarily going.
Mm-hmm. So you can have two 94 miles an hour pitches, but with different spin rates.
Yeah. So if you have a high spin rate 94 mile an hour fastball, it's not going to drop as much. And if you have a low spin rate 94 mile an hour fastball, it is going to drop. Mm-hmm. They're both valuable if you throw them in the right place. So if you throw a 94 mile an hour fastball with low spin rate, low in the zone, it's going to tail or drop out of the zone, and the batter's going to swing over it. If you throw a high spin rate up in the zone, it's going to look like it's going to drop right into the barrel or right into the sweet spot, and a batter will swing under it. But it's just using those spin rates to pitch properly. That's
so. From what you sent me, I was looking at, and it said spin is generated in only 6 milliseconds.
Yeah.
In the pitcher's hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how the fuck is that?
It's definitely a good question. It's because like when they're releasing the ball, like when they're swinging their arm back, it actually has backspin as they're doing that. And then when you get to the peak, like as you release a pitch, you really flick your wrist. So you have to really pull down on it. And that momentum they create when they're stepping and turning their hips, that really helps like pull down on the ball and create that spin. So it's all how you're holding the ball, and it's all how you basically flick at the end of your pitch. You can create that spin.
So they were also saying that you... here, I'm going to read you. So it says, some studies have shown that spin rate is an innate characteristic to each pitcher, but not across a large population of pitchers. Mm-hmm. So does that mean that spinning is an innate talent in...
Yeah, then that's kind of...
certain people?
That's kind of the problem. So... they haven't figured out how to change it for each pitcher, so they're kind of thinking maybe it's just something that you're naturally talented to be able to do. Like I have a really high spin rate. Mm-hmm. That's just something that happens. Like I didn't change
you just
my
flick your wrist better than anyone else.
No, but like that's just just something that naturally happens. Not something I've ever actively thought of doing.
Uh-huh.
And if I wanted to throw a low spin rate, I couldn't. It's just the way that the ball goes. But yeah, I guess it would be like an innate talent or something that's naturally gifted to these athletes.
And so what about those methods that have, or I guess those myths that, people can teach, or some coaches can teach pitchers how to throw pitches with more spins and all that? Is that just BS?
Yeah, it's a myth so far. I mean, there's been no breakthrough like, oh, if you hold the ball like with your fingers 3 inches apart and on this part of the ball, you'll be able to create more spin. Mm-hmm. But there was kind of like a controversy in baseball. So the Astros this year have been phenomenal at pitching.
Yeah.
And people have noticed that their spin rates have increased by like 200 RPM, which is a huge jump. And Trevor Bauer, who's one of these like really analytically driven pitchers, was like, I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. And basically it was very sarcastic and like, yeah, I wonder how they could possibly do that. We have no idea. When there's been a study in Seattle saying that if you use pine tar, like the sticky substance you use to hold onto a bat, you can create more spin, which makes sense because you'll stick to the ball for a little bit longer and then you can create more spin.
But you can't create spin naturally.
You can't do it legally with certain substances. You can.
Right. You can't hide that unless you use some substance that's clear.
Yeah. So
I'm just thinking of ways to cheat.
Oh yeah, for sure. And majors are some rules they really enforce, some they don't. They like the pitchers throw hard and they get high strikeout rates. They like home runs the most, so they'll do anything to make sure that there's more home runs. But pitchers will put Vaseline on the end of their cap, or they'll use the rosin bag on the back of the mound, and they'll pair it with water, and it creates this like really sticky like substance that you can use. Mm-hmm. It's not supposed to be like that, but it happens for sure. Like Michael Pineda on the Yankees, I think like 3 years ago, he put like pine tar on his neck, and he's a darker guy, so you couldn't really tell. Uh-huh. But then everyone's like, why is this guy touching his neck like before every single pitch? And the umpire walked out, touched it. He's like, that's pine tar. Like you're out. You kicked him out of the game. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. I mean, it's 2018. He should have just played the race card and got it.
Exactly.
So okay. I got some questions for you from my friends.
Cool.
It's a segment called Tony's Questions.
Tony's Questions? Right?
Yeah. So do you think, this is from Sean. Sean, who was actually on the podcast last episode.
Gotcha.
Do you think PED users should be in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Why?
Because certain PED users at that time were doing it with everybody else. The pitchers they were hitting the home runs off of, or the other hitters that they were striking out, were all using PEDs. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of that like Lance Armstrong debate. Like everybody was doing it. Everybody knew everybody was doing it, but there were no rules implemented at that time. Like they got implemented after. Mm-hmm. So maybe you started in college, or maybe you started in the major leagues before they really cracked down on PEDs. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, as a part of your routine, it's just how you got to where you are. The fact of the matter is you get bigger and stronger. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a better baseball player. Like it's not weightlifting, basically. It's not going to help you lift more weights. Maybe you can hit a ball a little bit further.
But that's the point.
You still have to time the ball. You still have to get your foot down and be an elite hitter and like to be able to do that. So the problem I have with it is like Barry Bonds, clearly a PED user, but also one of the best hitters of all time.
Okay.
The way he was able to time up pitches, his on-base percentage was out of control. Like, pitchers didn't want to throw to him. But if they had said, like, I'll ask you this. If they said to Major League Baseball players, everybody's allowed to use PEDs, do you think that's ethical? Like, do you think that's fair?
If everybody is,
yeah,
then, maybe. If everybody is, I don't know. What do you think?
The problem with that question is then people will feel like they have to do it, and when they don't want to.
Well, exactly, because exactly. You're gonna want to survive.
Yeah,
you'll be out of the league the next week.
Exactly. So, which is fair, and I actually do like that they crack down on PEDs, but the guys that use them, like the Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens got convicted of it. All these guys, I still think they should be in the Hall of Fame because that was the times that it happened in.
Mm-hmm.
When they started their careers, it was before anyone was. Like, everyone was just turning a blind eye to it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like now if the majors were like, okay, no banned substances for pitchers. Like, nobody's allowed to use pine tar, Vaseline, or the rosin bag, which has already been a rule that's saying you're not supposed to, but they turn a blind eye to.
What's that?
What's that? The rosin bag?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bag on the back of the mound that they basically chalk and they hit on their fingers, and it creates this like substance where it's really sticky if you combine it with water.
That's legal.
That's legal. But using Vaseline or using pine tar is basically in the rules. It says you can't, but no one is going to like actively look for it on your body every time that you're going out there, and they can't really test for it. So if you're really obvious with it, then you'll get thrown out of the game, like Pineda was. But it'd be like them saying anyone that used that is not allowed in the Hall of Fame. Meanwhile, every other pitcher was doing it, or the vast majority of pitchers were doing it, and it was just allowed because. Like, the majors like high strikeout rates. They like big home runs. So these hitters might have felt like pressured into doing it, basically. Like, I need to do this to make a living. I need to do this to make massive amounts of money.
So basically, we don't want steroids because we want to keep the playing field quote unquote equal, which is never equal, by the way. And so, but if everybody was on the juice, then it would be like also equal, but on a like a somewhat of a higher level. Yeah,
it'd be like a Monstar type of team.
But the playing field is still the same, but except that everybody is juicing.
Yeah.
So what's the debate against having PED users in the Hall of Fame then? It's just because it's unethical because they're cheating? Is that it?
It's because there's a lot of professional hitters that never used PEDs and gotten to certain levels without it. Like, maybe they hit the same home run totals. Like, I doubt Hank Aaron was ever on the juice, or Babe Ruth. Like, he clearly wasn't on it, but they hit such massive home run numbers. So it's kind of unfair to like compare Hank Aaron, because everybody loves to do that in sports, to like Barry Bonds, because Barry Bonds used juice. That's how he was able to do it. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, but Barry Bonds was seeing 96 miles an hour every single game. So there are differences. But yeah, the major thought is just being like, well, they did it when maybe like 50% of the other players in the league weren't doing it. So it shouldn't be fair.
So what was I going to say? So, okay, if everybody is juicing and the product is better because there's more home runs, do you think they should bring it back? That would not fly in today's day and ever.
It's just because of like the long-term health like repercussions from using PEDs. That's why it wouldn't fly. But if they could figure out a way to make these guys stronger without, negatively hurting them, and they already do that they've improved bat technology and
strength and conditioning,
all that stuff. But if they could just give them like, here, take this pill, it's never going to hurt you in the long run, everybody's doing it, and you're just going to be massive and be able to hit really well, then you would have an even playing field again. Everybody wins. Majors wins, the fans win, the players win, because they get to hit crazy numbers. So,
okay, I know you're not a historian MLB, but like, when did they start really cracking down on steroids?
There was, I want to say like the 80s or 90s was when it was a really big crackdown. The mid 90s, I would say, is about when it was. And that was when there was huge home run totals, like massive. Like it was.
And people were like,
yeah, like 75 home runs in a season. Like, what? Like, how is that possible? Yeah. And then everybody's kind of looking at this guy. He's like, okay, he's 250, like solid muscle, like veiny as all hell, and he's hitting these huge home runs. There's got to be something else. Like, you can't naturally get that big. Or like Barry Bonds, I think his head size increased like like maybe he was like a 7 1/8 head size and he increased to like 7 3/4 or something. So everyone's like, that's not natural, basically what you're doing.
That's insane.
But yeah, I think it was like the mid 90s, late 90s, and then early 2000s. A ton of guys got busted. Yeah.
So when you were playing in the NAIA, and I don't want you to like get in trouble or anything, but like how was the juice like prevalent in the league?
Yeah, it's definitely prevalent. But the problem is like there is testing in the NAIA as well. So like I got drug tested twice. And it's not like because I was like hitting like crazy home run numbers or like I'm naturally jacked or something. Yeah. I think they just knew that I wasn't, because maybe my body stature or something like that. And
it's kind of insulting. You're like,
exactly. It's like, what the hell, man? Like, you know I'm gonna pass? Like, what the fuck? But yeah, so I got it twice. So there's always that. If you get busted for it, I think it's 25% of your season you get suspended the first time, and then I think it might be 50% or a full year ban if you get caught a second time. But it's definitely prevalent. Like guys are using it for sure.
How is testing done in the MLB?
It's a piss test usually. So
I mean, like how frequent? Like where, anywhere, anytime?
Yeah, it's completely random. They'll come up to you basically as you're walking down the stairs after a game, and they'll say to you like, "Hey man, can you come with me? Like we're with the MLB. You got to do a drug test." And they'll do it right after a game. And that really didn't start until A-Rod got busted, because he was using these gummies that he got from like a really science heavy lab, and they were giving him these gummies, and he would text his trainer, "Hey, when can I take this to pass the test?" basically. And
when is it out of my system?
Yeah, so he would take it at 9 a.m. and then if there was a 5 p.m. test, he'd pass it, no problem. But it would give you that boost for like a 1 o'clock game or something.
What's in it? Do you know?
I'm not sure the actual chemical compound of it, or even what the name of the steroid is. But yeah, they were just like these little like Flintstones gummies, or like a bag of gummies, that he would take before a game. So everyone thinks of steroids as being like these needles or something that you're using in the bathroom, and it's way more high tech than that.
Meanwhile, like, A-Rod's walking in the locker room just popping.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
his team is like, "Yo, can I have some of those?" Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you'll like these Skittles, man.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, Ryan Braun, what he got busted for was rubbing cream on his forearms. It was a steroidal cream to help.
Right, because to
help with like his arm strength.
Some skin creams do have that.
Yeah, so it didn't necessarily make him stronger, but it just made him able to play 162 games.
Well, it counters fatigue and helps with recovery and all that.
Exactly.
So Chad Mendes, a UFC fighter, he was busted for steroids, and I don't know if his story is true or not, but he has psoriasis.
Oh yeah.
And so the skin cream he's using has steroids in it.
Oh.
And so that's what he got busted for. Well, that's what he said he got busted for.
Really? So did he say like, "Oh, I didn't know there was steroids in that. It's just something I've always used for my psoriasis"?
I think that's what he said, because UFC employs USADA to do it, U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, and they test you any time of the day, whenever they want, as many times as they want. They come to your house, you're taking a dump, they don't care, they'll walk in.
They're like scooping the cup in there.
Like, hold on, let me get this one out. So, but you're allowed to notify USADA like of any substance or any supplement you're using.
Okay.
Tell them like, "Hey, this is what I'm taking it for. I'll send you a sample, test it, so that when you test me and you see this, you don't suspend me."
Oh, I see. So the athletes have to be proactive for anything.
They have to be proactive. They have to tell the USADA like everything they're taking, every supplement they're taking.
Right.
I mean, if they don't want to get busted, you cannot do it and then get in shit later.
Right.
It's on you. You have to update your whereabouts all the time. Every couple months, you have to like go on the app and tell them like, "Hey, I'm gonna be in this city at this time, and then I'm gonna go there, and I'm gonna be here." So it's it's a hassle. But how do you think there's a lot of juicing going on in MLB today?
I think they've done actually a pretty good job of
cleaning it up.
Of really cleaning it up. Like the last guy that got a major suspension was Cano this year, and D. Gordon last year. So that's how you can kind of tell that steroids have shifted from more so like massive muscle gains and allowing you to be able to work out more often, to more so like recovery, because like D. Gordon's like 150 pounds, like soaking wet, and Robbie Cano is, I think, is like 185 or 190. So he's not like these huge guys, but they've had to really adjust their testing protocols for way more compounds, because as the testing gets better, so do the people producing the drugs and the big pharma companies able to produce these things that, you know, can circumvent the system.
Yeah. And also using are IV bags allowed in the...
That's a good... I'm actually not sure. I would imagine that they are. Like, they wouldn't have a big problem with like rehydration. I'm sure in MMA and boxing it would be a huge problem.
It's illegal.
Yeah. But baseball, I can't imagine they would crack down on that.
Because I think Lance Armstrong was using IV bags to mask his...
is that what he was
using?
Oh, really?
And the UFC, they used to do that too. Now they're illegal.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if there's specifically any rule, but if there is, it would be fairly new.
Mm-hmm. Well, that actually ties back into the weight cutting we're talking about, because back when it was at 8 p.m., not only were steroids not tested for, but also you're able to use IV bags. So if you're cutting weight up to 24 hours before the fight, you can just pop an IV in and you'll be hydrated and you'll be fine. Now you can't do that.
Yeah, so these guys are going into the fight dehydrated, like not even close to prepared then, if it's at 8 p.m., right?
They blow up, obviously. Like, let's say you're fighting at 150. Yeah. By the time you step in the octagon, you're probably like 160 to 165.
Okay.
Depending on how big they are. So they do blow up. They do rehydrate, but how much do they really rehydrate?
Right.
Probably not enough.
Yeah, no. And
so they're going
and at what point do you like swing the pendulum too much? It's like, okay, you've drank too much water now, or you're too bloated, you're too slow.
Right.
So maybe that's the thing.
That's crazy. Too. Okay, the next Tony's questions also comes from Sean. So he says, how GOAT status is Shohei?
Okay.
Shohei, what's his name?
Shohei Otani?
Shohei Otani, yeah. Yep. For pitching and hitting at the highest level. And for people who are over 16 years old and don't know what GOAT status means, it's like, how great is he?
Yeah,
how
the greatest of
guy?
all time. Like, how does he compare to the greatest of all time? How GOAT status?
Maybe not already GOAT, but like, how GOAT status?
He's okay on a scale of 1 to GOAT status. He's probably like a...
How many letters of GOAT does he have?
Let's say there's 10 of GOAT status. He'd probably be like, right now, a 7.5.
What? Isn't he 23?
He's 24, maybe 23 or 24.
He's already at 7.5.
He's already at 7.5 because he can throw 100. There's like 15 guys in the league that can do that right now, and then he can just hit bombs like from the left side of the plate, which is super impressive. Mm-hmm. Or no, he's a righty. Sorry, he's a righty. But for him to be able to come in and already hit home runs off of major league pitching, he came over from Japan. For him to be able to hit the pitching and to pitch the way that he has, if he can prevent injuries, he's 100% GOAT status.
So let's explain this a bit for people who don't know much about him.
Yeah.
So he's a young Japanese kid. He comes in the league and he hits and he pitches. Yeah, which is unheard of since Babe Ruth, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they call him Japanese Babe Ruth. That's his like nickname.
So nobody has done this since Babe Ruth, which is in a couple of decades. I don't know how long Babe Ruth. Yeah. So do you think that's sustainable? Do you think he can keep this up throughout his MLB career?
I think at some point he's going to have to pick. And they'll probably really try to turn him towards the pitching side. Mm-hmm. The thing is, if you make him pick pitching, and for some reason he gets injured, like overuse, hurts his labrum or something like that, what's to say he can't just restructure himself and still be an elite hitter for that team? Correct. So I was actually surprised. So in baseball, there's the American League and the National League. Mm-hmm. In the National League, the pitchers hit. They're forced to hit. In the American League, you get a designated hitter for the pitcher. I was surprised.
Wait, hold on. So in the MLB is split into two
leagues, and there's 2 sets of rules:
National and American.
Yeah.
And one of them, pitchers are supposed to hit.
Yeah, the National League pitchers have to hit. They're usually the 9th hitter in the lineup, and then in the American League, you get a designated hitter. You get some like 300-pound dude that can just crush balls, and he hits in the pitcher's spot.
Why not just unify the rules?
That's another good question. I don't know why the majors have never done that, but there's a lot of pushback from which rules do we pick. So if we pick letting the pitcher hit all the time, then the strikeout rates are going to go through the roof, because traditionally pitchers are like horrible hitters, and that's why Otani is such a standout, because he can hit just like any other major league hitter, even better than a lot of them. So if we do that, we're going to increase the strikeouts. But then if we implement a designated hitter, then we're going to have more home runs and possibly a slower game, because then we're going to use more relievers to face like specific hitters and matchups, and it really slows down the game. So the majors are really split on their decision on that. Traditionally, like National League games, I think go a little bit quicker, like they go through them quicker.
Okay.
But American League games, like there's a lot more home runs, maybe a little bit more fun to watch.
What other differences are there between National League and American League?
That's pretty much it. Is the designated hitter? There's also like a double switch, so you can put like a pitcher in left field, and then he can come in and hit and then go into pitch. Like it's this really weird rule. So you can kind of navigate the rules that way, but that is like the major difference.
Okay. So why, obviously Shohei is an anomaly, right? And so is Babe Ruth. And I wouldn't expect many people to be like them.
Right.
But why do we not see more of those cases?
It could be something where it's
not
like,
necessarily on their level, but like, somewhat comparable.
So I think it could be something like traditionally coaches have forced you to pick. Like when you go to college, a big thing going to play at like a college team in baseball is everybody says they can pitch and hit. And then the coach will be like, I don't know, no one really does that. Like you should be a pitcher, or your skills are more tailored to a pitcher, or your skills are more tailored to a hitter.
Right.
Maybe now that they're seeing someone successfully do it in the majors, it's going to cascade down into definitely in Japan. Everybody's going to be wanting to be doing that. Like he has like this crazy following, but here you might start to see it as well. So it started to happen with ambidextrous pitchers, so they can throw with their right arm and their left arm. But the rates of those people in minor league, just from seeing a major leaguer do it, it goes into the minor league system and all the way down to youth baseball, and then kids at 4 years old are trying to do it. I think that will have an effect on it. But why it hasn't happened, like why Shohei is such an anomaly, is because coaches have kind of really forced you to pick one way or the other. It's not on the coaches. It's just a matter of getting the best value out of your players.
Right, because your job as a coach is to maximize the abilities of your player.
Yeah,
so
and you don't want your guy getting hurt. Like if he throws 100 pitches and then is expected to go out and hit, it is a strain on your shoulder and your body. Like maybe you got to run and slide and do these things. And if you slide on your right thumb or something, then you can't pitch for a couple months. So yeah, there's a balance there.
Does he hit in the same games that he pitches?
So the day before he pitches, he has a day off. The day he pitches, he doesn't hit. I don't think actually no, he probably does. He does hit when he pitches. So in the American League, you can choose to have a DH. You don't have to. Almost every team does, but they don't. And then the day after he pitches, he doesn't hit. So every 5 days you pitch in the majors. So 3 days he's hitting, or 2 days he's hitting, and then 3 days are geared for him pitching.
So you in the AL you get the opportunity to choose whether you want to have a DH or not, but they don't. So they don't have they don't have to employ someone.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's just a bad choice usually because the pitchers aren't great hitters.
Right. Okay, makes sense. I wonder if he's going to keep this up throughout his career. That would be amazing to see.
I hope so. I mean, the knock on him is he's kind of has a little bit of an injury history. Like right now he has a blister on his middle finger, and it's kind of pushed him back a couple starts. But he's had some arm issues and stuff, so it is kind of a risk. But I really hope he can keep it up.
Is this his first season?
It's his first season, yeah, and it's great for baseball. Like the Angels games have been unbelievable, sold out with like he has like a whole section of Japanese fans going just to watch him.
Why is baseball big in Japan? Where did it originate from? Isn't it an American sport?
It is an American sport, but they've been really good at baseball for a long time. I don't really know too much of the history over there, but the Korean League, I've been told, like people that go to those games, like it's a whole nother world. It's like going to see Premier League soccer. Yeah, like completely different.
Well, I've seen videos with like banners and flags and people losing their mind.
Yeah, it's great. In like their All-Star game, they have this competition, or I've seen a video of it where they like the pitcher throws the ball and then the smoke screen goes up and then you have to hit a home run as the ball comes through the smoke. Like it's so crazy, but it looks really interesting.
It's so over the top. That's amazing. I love it. Yeah. Actually, my next question, this ties in great with my next question. Why do you think baseball's popularity is declining? Is it because our millennial brains are just, they need like quick stimulation all the time and baseball is kind of slow?
Yeah, I think it's a really slow, boring game. Like I'm really interested in it. I know all the nuances, so that's what I'm watching when I'm watching the game. But if you don't know what's going on, it takes a long time to learn like some of those subtle nuances that you wouldn't know. So it would be really boring. It makes sense that that's why it's declining. That's why the majors are having a tough time. Should we try to make the game shorter? Like, should we make it happen faster so people are more engaged? Or should we make it longer and have these guys hit more home runs to make people, because people get excited for home runs.
Yeah. So, okay, if you were the president of MLB for one day, what would you change about MLB to make it more exciting?
To make it more exciting, I think you need more international access. So maybe you start thinking about having a few teams in Japan or in Korea or something like that. Think of like an expansion team over there. I know it's a scheduling mess, but even just having those teams rooted there, like maybe they play for a month in Japan and like teams come over and they'll stay there for like 6 weeks or something like that and play a bunch of games. And then when they fly back, like those people in Japan and Korea are going to be really engaged with all their teams. And it kind of, you would disperse more towards like the global side of things, because it's an American game. Even in Canada, we don't watch that much baseball compared to the States. So I think they really need to globally go out and do that. I think you could do that with an expansion team. I also would stop using like a lot of so baseball has really traditional fans. They like the old rules. They like, no replay. Like they like the certain amount of times in between innings. I would keep a lot of those rules because you want to keep those fans. You don't want them to be like, baseball's not even the same game anymore. I'm going to switch to football, or, I'm just going to stop watching it. And then, I guess they have to figure out a way to keep their hitters on par with the pitchers, because the pitchers are really starting to pull away from the hitters. They are dominating them. I think
pitchers are advancing faster than hitters.
Yeah, I think April was one of the highest strikeout months ever in baseball, and it goes back to like 1880 or something like that. There's more teams and more players now, but it's really starting to slow the game down, and you're getting not
the
as
gap
many.
Is getting bigger.
Yeah, high scoring games. I guess you could also what I like they used to do is the All-Star game used to dictate who gets home field during the World Series.
Okay.
So if the American League wins, then they get home field advantage, which in baseball makes a big difference, because then you get a designated hitter for 4 games.
Oh.
Yeah. It's because the rules are whatever park you're playing in. So if an American League team goes to the National League and plays against a National League team, they have to play the NL rules.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So that's a huge difference in the World Series. If you have a really good designated hitter and your All-Star team wins the All-Star game, then you get home field advantage and you get to use that hitter. They took that rule away last year and the viewership went way down. Like, because the guys don't care. It became like the NBA All-Star game where guys are just like throwing up lobs and no one really watches it. It becomes kind of a mockery. So I would bring that back too.
Would you bring the Expos back, or do you think there's no market?
I don't know. I think Canadian baseball has been growing. Like we've gotten a lot better at baseball. We have a lot more guys in the majors than we ever have, even in the minors. So it would be nice to branch out to one of those markets, or maybe even a Western team, like in Vancouver? BC or in Alberta or something like that. It'd be nice to have more Canadian teams, because that would make the market a little more global, and I think that would bring up definitely viewership and get more fans engaged.
I wonder if there's any market in Alberta though, or like
It might be hard.
Maybe Vancouver would be more.
Yeah, but there's like a Western Major Baseball League. It's similar to the league that I play in, except it's just for college players. And they get fans like in Okotoks, and they get a lot of people, like loyal fans, coming out to the games. So if you have major leaguers showing up, then you might be able to draw from that local community. But yeah, you're right. The population might not be there to support it. So
do you think if the MLB keeps this trajectory up in terms of like declining popularity and ratings and all that, like what's the future of the? Yeah, I think it's always going to be a game where like traditionalists are going to be engaged in it and stick around with it. So it seems like a game, like the traditional game where like a dad watches it with his son, and then his son like begins to love baseball. So you'll still have those fans, but if the viewership continues to decline, then you're going to have less big contracts, and guys aren't going to pick like, okay, I'm going to go to the majors because that's where I'm going to make the most money. I'm just going to go play football because I love football and I can make good money and have so many fans. But say it continues on this trajectory, I guess, at some point it would fizzle out. Like you never know what the future of a sport is going to be. That would be so sad. And I'm not even a baseball fan. That would be so sad.
Yeah. And it's not like it's code red, like they're on like life support right now. They still have a ton of loyal fans and a big fan base. But there's definitely issues they need to address.
Yeah, I mean, if they implement a couple changes in some of the ones you mentioned too, because baseball has the most monstrous contracts right now, right?
Oh yeah. Stanton's was 10 years, $325 million.
Right. Like that's absolutely
huge.
bonkers.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen to those contracts when the ratings keep going down, when the popularity keeps going down, when ticket sales aren't there?
Right. So the Yankees won't be able to afford to hand out these massive contracts to certain players. And yeah, there will be less money to go around in the sport.
Honestly, I think the same thing about football with more CTE research and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, football definitely hasn't shown signs of decreasing popularity. That's for sure.
Viewership is way down in the NFL. And
oh wait, it has?
Yeah, it's been going down. People blame it on like politics and
oh, that's true,
and all that stuff. But I definitely blame the health side of it, like of the NFL. Like these players, like we were saying earlier, you can only be like 30 and be a running back in the NFL. At some point, your body just breaks down. Mm-hmm. But the mental side, like your life after football, is just so poor because you take such insane damage. Mm-hmm. So it takes a really special type of athlete that they have to really love the game to want to go into it, and they have those players. But if they don't figure out a technology to protect their players a little bit more, then they're going to have a similar issue.
That's what I keep thinking about sports like football and MMA and even hockey. The more research that's been done on CTE and the dangers, the more parents are going to be less likely to enroll their kids in those sports. And
that already happens with football.
Yeah.
Like in youth sports, people will be kind of forcing them to go away from football, like play these sports because look at these guys that are 25 years old and they have brain damage. Like parents will definitely start to steer them away from that. Yeah,
like by the time you're 30, you're starting to see those signs probably, or maybe earlier, because you hear a lot of cases from the NFL and how young guys and like what they're doing, how they're living their lives.
Exactly. And there was that study, I think this year or last year, where they had, I think it was 102 deceased NFL like former players, and like 99 of them they found CTE in. The study, it was a little bit biased because like the families were already wondering if that was a case and like why they died. Like they thought that they might have already had CTE. That's still a crazy number though.
That's insane.
Yeah, like it's
99 out of 100.
Something you can't turn your head to.
And what I've seen lately is that they're starting to track CTE while you're alive. So in a living brain, I think it's probably like in the beginning stages of monitoring, but that would still be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And the technology, like even on the medical side of things, like MRI, the new CTs that they have, the more and more high quality and high definition that those scans become, then the more we can diagnose those things and see when they're developing
earlier.
Yeah. So if we get a guy that has a huge hit and then we use this like brand new MRI machine and we they researchers can figure out where it is, like the developing signs of it. It's like, listen, man, you like, I'm sorry to tell you, but if you keep doing this, this is what could happen to your brain. This is what could happen for the rest of your life, and give them that choice as opposed to being like, here, follow my finger. Oh, you're not concussed. Like, keep
quick
playing.
Concussion protocol. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, listen, man, this podcast actually got me so excited about baseball. I'll be down to go to Jays game soon or something.
For sure. Yeah. We should get. So, what does Tony question stand for? Is it your buddy Tony or like the Tony Awards?
They call themselves the Tonys. I don't know why. It's a long story, man.
So I was gonna say we should get the Tony group out. We'll go to a.
I'm down to get the Tonys going. Yeah, get all the boys and go to a Jays game or something.
For sure.
That'd be awesome. I went once actually, and I don't remember anything. It was my buddy's birthday, and we were just drinking, and I was just hammered by like halfway in, and I don't remember anything. But it's definitely a good time.
Oh yeah,
and baseball has that vibe that's different from other sports. I think it's because it's a bit slower, so you focus more on like the group that you're with and the beers and
like
chants and
exactly. And you go to a Jays game and you sit in the 500 level. It's like a sense of community. Everyone up there is like, pretty broke and like they're just trying to drink like expensive beers, get hammered, and no one might not be know what's going on with the game, but then all of a sudden the guy hits a home run and everyone's like super excited. Yeah.
And granted, 90% of them are half in the bag before they show up to the game anyway.
You kind of have to be. It's like you got to prime yourself for it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I can't thank you enough for doing this. This has been great, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
After you've done the project, we can see what happened.
For sure. Yeah, I'll let you know the results.
We can write a book about that.
I'm into it for sure.
Man, thank you.
Thanks, buddy.